The silence in the arena stretched like a held breath. Kexvorth stood motionless, his claws half raised, staring at the human who had just offered him something no one had ever given a Slayer before. A choice. "You would spare me?" the Slayer asked slowly. "I would teach you," Taemin corrected. "There's a difference. Sparing suggests I have power over you. Teaching suggests we have something to learn from each other." The consortium officials were whispering urgently among themselves. This demonstration had gone completely wrong. The human was supposed to be dead by now, not conducting philosophy lessons with their trained killer. "This is not acceptable," one official announced loudly. "Kexvorth, complete your mission. Kill the Deathworlder now." The Slayer's red eyes flickered toward the officials, then back to Taemin. For the first time in his life, he felt conflicted about following orders. "You heard them," Taemin said gently. "Your mission is to kill me. Do you still want to do that?" It was a simple question that cut straight to the heart of everything Kexvorth had been bred and trained for. His entire existence had been built around a single purpose: eliminate Deathworld threats. But now, facing an actual Deathworlder, he found himself questioning that purpose. I don't understand," the Slayer admitted. "You are dangerous. I can sense it. Yet you choose not to be. Dangerous how?" Taemin asked curiously. "You move like a predator. You think like a strategist. You adapt faster than any species I have encountered. You are everything we were warned about." Kexvorth's voice grew quieter. "But you use none of it to harm others." Taemin nodded thoughtfully. "Being dangerous and being harmful are different things. A storm is dangerous, but it also brings rain for crops. Fire is dangerous, but it also provides warmth and light. Power isn't evil, Kexvorth. It's just power." In the stands, the students were beginning to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't a fight between predator and prey. It was a conversation between two apex beings, each trying to understand the other's nature. Yunji, the representative of the prey species coalition, felt her worldview shifting. She had spent her life believing that predators were inherently evil, that power always led to oppression, but watching the human offer friendship to a creature designed to kill him challenged everything she thought she knew. "Complete your mission," the consortium official demanded again. "That's an order." Kexvorth looked at the official with growing irritation. "I am evaluating the threat level. The human appears to be contained." "Contained?" The official sputtered. "It's corrupting you with its words. Kill it before it what?" Taemin interrupted calmly. "Before it helps you understand that maybe, just maybe, your approach to dangerous species is wrong." He set his staff down on the arena floor and raised his hands peacefully. "I'm unarmed now, Kexvorth. If you want to complete your mission, this is your chance." The Slayer stared at the defenseless human. By all logic, this should be easy. One quick strike, mission accomplished, Deathworlder eliminated. But something held him back. "Why?" he asked. "Why what? Why would you disarm yourself? Why make yourself vulnerable?" "This could be a trick," Taemin smiled. "It could be. Or it could be trust. How do you tell the difference?" The question hung in the air like a puzzle demanding solution. Kexvorth had been trained to assume deception, to expect traps, to see every action as a potential threat. But trust? That was something he had never encountered from prey species. "I don't know," the Slayer admitted. "Then maybe it's time to learn," Taemin suggested. "Real learning requires risk. You have to make yourself vulnerable to new ideas." He took a step closer to the Slayer, still keeping his hands visible and empty. "Tell me about the 17 species you've killed. What were they like?" "They were..." Kexvorth paused, thinking. "Aggressive, violent, they attacked settlements, destroyed ships, killed civilians." "All of them?" "Yes, all Deathworlders are the same. Violent and uncontrollable." Taemin considered this. "But I'm a Deathworlder. Have I been violent and uncontrollable?" The question forced Kexvorth to examine his assumptions. In 3 weeks at the academy, the human had shown no aggression toward anyone. Even now, facing a trained killer, he remained calm and reasonable. "You are different," the Slayer said slowly. "Or maybe," Taemin suggested gently, "the others were different too. Maybe they were violent because they were afraid. Maybe they attacked because they thought they had no other choice." This idea shook Kexvorth to his core. His entire purpose was built on the premise that Deathworlders were inherently evil. If that wasn't true, "You're saying I killed innocent beings?" The Slayer's voice carried a pain that surprised everyone. "I'm saying you killed beings who might have become friends if given the chance," Taemin replied compassionately. But you didn't know that then. You were following your training, doing what you believed was right. Young-Su watched in amazement as the Slayer's posture changed. The killing machine was becoming something else entirely. A person grappling with moral complexity for the first time. What do I do now? Kexvorth asked, and the question sounded almost childlike coming from such a fearsome creature. You choose, Taemin said simply. You can complete your mission and kill me, proving that Deathworlders are too dangerous for civilization. Or you can try something different. What's different? Help me teach others what you've learned today. Show them that even natural enemies can become allies when they understand each other. Taemin extended his hand toward the Slayer. Partners? Kexvorth stared at the offered hand. In his culture, touching another being was either an act of violence or an act of trust. There was no middle ground. The consortium officials realized what was happening and moved to intervene. Security. Stop this immediately! But Miran, who had been watching from the security station, made no move to interfere. The veteran warrior had seen something in this demonstration that changed her perspective. The most dangerous thing in the arena wasn't the Slayer or the human individually, it was what they might become together. You want me to betray everything I was created for? Kexvorth said, but his voice lacked conviction. I want you to become everything you could be, Taemin replied. Creation doesn't have to be destiny. You can choose who you want to become. The Slayer looked at the extended hand, then at the crowd of students watching in stunned silence, then back at the human who had shown him a different way to exist. Slowly, carefully, Kexvorth reached out with one massive claw and gently touched Taemin's palm. The arena erupted in chaos as the consortium officials realized their demonstration had become something entirely different. A graduation ceremony for a reformed killer. The fight began without ceremony. Kexvorth moved with the fluid precision of a born killer, his claws extending as he closed the distance between them in seconds. The crowd gasped as the Slayer's first strike whistled through the air where Taemin's head had been a moment before. But Taemin wasn't there anymore. The human had moved at the last possible second, not away from the attack but around it. His simple metal staff deflected the Slayer's second claw strike with minimal effort, using the creature's own momentum against him. Interesting, Taemin commented calmly as he stepped back. You telegraph your attacks about half a second early. Is that intentional or a habit from fighting species with slower reflexes? Kexvorth paused, confused. His prey was analyzing him during combat. You speak during battle, the Slayer growled. This shows lack of focus, does it? Taemin asked, easily avoiding another claw swipe. Or does it show I have attention to spare? Tell me, in your 17 hunts, did any of your prey ever ask you questions? The answer was no, and Kexvorth's hesitation gave Taemin the opening he needed. The human staff struck the Slayer's armored shoulder, not hard enough to cause damage, but precisely placed to test the armor's flexibility. Natural armor, but it has joints. You sacrifice some protection for mobility. Smart design. Taemin danced away from the Slayer's enraged counterattack. How long did it take to evolve this level of specialization? Thousands of years? In the stands, Jinna leaned forward with growing fascination. He's studying the Slayer, she whispered. During the fight, he's conducting research. That's impossible, Miran replied, but her voice lacked conviction. No one can think clearly during combat with a Slayer. Humans can, apparently, Hyojin observed. She was reading Taemin's thoughts and finding them remarkably organized. His mind isn't clouded by fear or anger. He's genuinely curious about how Kexvorth works. Down in the arena, the Slayer was growing frustrated. Every attack he made taught the human something new. Worse, the human shared his observations out loud as if he were giving a lecture. Your reach is approximately 2 meters, Taemin noted, deflecting another strike. But your claws add another 30 centimeters to that. However, your follow-through leaves you slightly off balance for about, half a second. To demonstrate, Taemin waited for the next attack, dodged it cleanly, and tapped his staff against the Slayer's knee during the brief moment of vulnerability. See? Right there. You're committed to the attack pattern your species developed, but it's designed for prey that fights back differently than humans do. Kexvorth snarled and launched a combination attack, claws striking in a complex pattern that had killed dozens of Deathworlders. But Taemin seemed to read the entire sequence before it began, flowing around each strike like water. That's a beautiful technique, the human commented appreciatively. Very efficient. It would work perfectly against species that rely on armor or natural weapons. But humans developed different survival strategies. What strategies? Kexvorth demanded, genuinely curious despite himself. Pattern recognition and adaptation, Taemin replied, using his staff to pole vault over a low sweep attack. We survived by learning faster than our predators could adapt. Every hunt taught us something new. The Slayer pressed his attack, but now he was fighting differently. Instead of relying on instinct and training, he found himself trying to think like his prey. What would the human do next? How would he adapt to the next attack? This mental change slowed him down just enough for Taemin to exploit. You're learning too, the human observed with genuine pleasure. You're trying to think ahead of me instead of just reacting. That's wonderful, but it's also making you hesitate. Taemin's staff struck Kexvorth's wrist at precisely the right angle to temporarily numb the arm. The Slayer's right claw drooped uselessly for several seconds. Nerve strike, Taemin explained to the watching crowd. Humans discovered that even the toughest armor has weak points where nerves run close to the surface. We learned this from fighting much larger predators than ourselves. Seokjin, the calculating Nexari student, was taking frantic notes. This isn't a fight, he muttered to his neighbor. It's a demonstration. The human is teaching us about human combat philosophy. But who's the teacher and who's the student? His neighbor asked nervously. That was becoming unclear. Kexvorth was adapting to the human's unusual fighting style, but every adaptation taught Taemin something new about the Slayer's capabilities. Both fighters were learning from each other at an incredible pace. Your species has excellent recovery time, Taemin noted as feeling returned to the Slayer's arm. Most beings would need medical attention after a nerve strike like that. But you're already compensating. How do you do that? Instead of answering, Kexvorth tried a different approach. He began fighting more defensively, using his natural armor to absorb the human's attacks while studying his movement patterns. Ah, now you're thinking like a human, Taemin said approvingly. Observe, learn, adapt, very good. But you're still thinking too much like a Slayer. What do you mean? Kexvorth asked, genuinely interested in the answer. You're thinking about how to kill me efficiently, but I'm not thinking about how to kill you at all. This statement confused everyone in the arena, including the Slayer. Then what are you thinking about? Taemin smiled as he deflected another attack. I'm thinking about how to teach you, how to show you something you've never seen before, how to give you a choice you've never had. What choice? Instead of answering directly, Taemin began changing his fighting style. He moved from purely defensive to something else entirely. He began fighting in a way that created opportunities for the Slayer to strike, but also created opportunities for himself to counterattack. I could have disabled your left arm 3 moves ago, Taemin commented during a brief pause. And your right leg is vulnerable to the same nerve strike I used on your wrist. Your armor has 17 different weak points that I've identified so far. Kexvorth realized with shock that this was true. The human had been holding back, could have been winning more decisively, but chose not to. Why don't you press your advantage? The Slayer asked. Because, Taemin replied, the goal isn't to defeat you. The goal is to understand you, and to help you understand me. For the first time in his life, Kexvorth lowered his claws slightly. You're not trying to kill me? I'm trying to teach you, Taemin corrected gently. That's what humans do. We turn enemies into teachers, teachers into friends, and friends into family. It's our greatest survival skill. The Slayer stared at him in amazement. But I came here to kill you. I know, Taemin replied calmly. That's what makes this educational. You still can, if that's what you choose. But now you know there are other options. The arena fell completely silent. Everyone realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. A Slayer experiencing doubt about his purpose for the first time in his life. The morning of the demonstration arrived with unusual silence. No students chattered in the halls. No one laughed or played in the common areas. The entire academy felt like a tomb waiting for its next occupant. Taemin woke early and went through his normal routine. He showered, brushed his teeth, and ate a simple breakfast. Woojin watched him with amazement and terror. How can you be so calm? The Phylixian whispered. In 2 hours you're going to die. Maybe, Taemin replied, spreading jam on his toast. But probably not. And either way, I'd rather not be hungry. The combat arena was already filling with students when they arrived. Unlike normal demonstrations, there was no excitement or anticipation. The young beings sat in frightened clusters, whispering prayers and trying not to look at the combat floor below. So Young had saved seats for Taemin and Woo Jin near the faculty section. As they climbed the stairs, other students pressed themselves back, as if the humans' impending doom might be contagious. "You still have time," So Young whispered urgently. "The emergency exits are clearly marked." "I know," Taemin replied, settling comfortably into his seat. "Nice view from here." On the arena floor, maintenance crews were setting up what looked like a small classroom. There were weapons racks, training equipment, and a medical station that Young-soo was stocking with enough supplies to treat a small war. "The medical station is mostly for show," Hyejin said sadly, joining their group. "There won't be enough left of you to treat." "That's very pessimistic," Taemin observed. "What makes everyone so sure I'm going to lose?" The question caught his friends off guard. In all their conversations about the upcoming fight, no one had considered the possibility that the human might actually win. "Because it's a slayer," So Young said slowly. "They're bred to kill things like you." "Things like me?" Taemin asked curiously. "What exactly am I like?" "You're a Deathworlder." "A predator." "A killer." "Am I?" Taemin looked genuinely confused. "I've never killed anything bigger than an insect. I study literature and mathematics. I help my roommate with his homework. Are those killer behaviors?" His friends stared at him. In 3 weeks, they had been so focused on what he might do that they had ignored what he actually did. And what he actually did was normal student things. A hush fell over the arena as the main doors opened. Kexvorth entered like a walking nightmare. His black armor gleamed under the lights and his red eyes swept the crowd like targeting systems. Students whimpered and tried to hide behind their seats. Behind the Slayer walked Dong Hyun and a group of consortium officials. The head instructor looked sick with worry. The officials looked eager for the show to begin. "Students of Nexus Prime," one of the officials announced, his voice echoing through the arena. "Today you will witness a demonstration of proper defensive techniques against Deathworld predators. Our expert Kexvorth of Grimhold will show you how trained professionals handle dangerous species." Kexvorth stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding stone. "Where is the human?" The question sent a ripple of fear through the crowd. Several students actually pointed at Taemin, who waved politely back at them. "Ah, there you are," the Slayer growled. "Come down. It is time for your lesson." This was the moment everyone expected the human to break, to beg, to cry, to try to run. Instead, Taemin stood up calmly and began walking toward the stairs. "Wait," So Young grabbed his arm. "You don't have to do this." "Actually, I do," Taemin replied gently. "But thank you for caring." He walked down the stairs while hundreds of alien eyes watched in stunned silence. When he reached the arena floor, he approached Dong Hyun first. "Sir, I'd like permission to participate properly in this demonstration." "Participate?" Dong Hyun blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" "Well, if this is an educational demonstration about humans, shouldn't it be accurate?" Taemin began removing his academy jacket. "The way we really are, not the way people think we are?" The consortium officials looked annoyed. This wasn't part of their plan. The human was supposed to be terrified, not asking for permission to join in. "What exactly are you requesting?" one official asked suspiciously. Taemin folded his jacket neatly and set it aside. Underneath, he wore a simple white shirt and dark pants. He looked completely ordinary, completely harmless. "I'm requesting permission to show everyone what human education actually looks like," he said calmly. "Because you see, we learn differently than most species." He turned to face the crowd of students, not the Slayer. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the arena without seeming loud or threatening. "Most species learn in safe environments," Taemin began, as if he were giving a lecture. "Controlled conditions with teachers who protect them from danger. But humans evolve differently. Our best learning has always happened under pressure." Kexvorth was growing impatient. He had expected fear, begging, maybe an attempt to run. This casual academic discussion was not what he had trained for. "Earth was never a safe classroom," Taemin continued. "Our weather could kill most species here in minutes. Our predators could swallow your largest warriors whole. Our gravity alone would crush half of you." Young-soo frantically checked his medical equipment, certain that the human had lost his mind from stress. But Hyejin, listening with her telepathic abilities, sensed something different. The human's mind wasn't breaking down. It was preparing. "So humans learn to have different kinds of teachers," Taemin said, still speaking to the crowd. We learned from storms that could level cities. We learned from predators that could track us for days. We learned from diseases that could wipe out entire populations. He paused and smiled, that gentle, terrifying smile. We learned that the most dangerous teacher is often the best teacher, because when your life depends on the lesson, you pay very close attention. The arena had fallen completely silent. Even Kexforth had stopped moving, confused by this strange behavior. So when I see a slayer, Taemin continued, I don't see death. I see a teacher. A very experienced teacher who has studied many different species and learned from all of them. He finally turned to face Kexforth directly. I'm honored to have such a qualified instructor. Shall we begin the lesson? The slayer stared at him for a long moment. In 17 different hunts against 17 different Deathworlder species, none had ever said thank you before the fight began. You want to learn from me? Kexforth asked, genuinely confused. Of course, Taemin replied. You're an expert on Deathworld species. I'm the only human you've ever met. This is a unique educational opportunity for both of us. He gestured to the weapons rack. May I? The consortium officials were whispering urgently among themselves. This was not going according to plan at all. The human was supposed to be a victim, not a volunteer. Donghyun, still confused but recognizing that something important was happening, nodded slowly. You may choose a weapon. Taemin walked to the rack and examined the options. There were energy blades, projectile weapons, and various alien combat tools. He ignored them all and picked up a simple metal staff about as long as he was tall. Interesting choice, Kexforth observed. That weapon has no edge, no energy discharge, no special abilities. Neither do I, Taemin replied, testing the staff's weight and balance. I'm just a student. But that's what makes this educational, don't you think? For the first time in his life, Kexforth felt something he had never experienced before. Curiosity about his prey. Every other Deathworlder had been predictable. They fought with fury, with desperation, with mindless aggression. This one was different. This one was thinking. 3 weeks had passed since Taemin's arrival at Nexus Prime Academy. The initial terror had settled into a nervous routine. Students still gave him wide spaces in the halls, but they no longer ran when they saw him coming. Some even nodded politely, though none had tried to become friends except for So Young. Woojin had grown more comfortable too. The little Felixian no longer slept with one eye open, and he had started asking Taemin questions about Earth. Simple questions like, do all humans eat meat? And why do you make those strange noises when you're happy? Taemin found these conversations amusing. He learned that what humans called laughing sounded like hunting calls to most prey species, so he tried to laugh more quietly around his roommate. In classes, things were going better than expected. Taemin was bright and eager to learn. He asked good questions and helped other students with difficult problems. The teachers were starting to relax. Then the message came. Donghyun read the official communication from the Galactic Educational Consortium 3 times before believing it. His scales turned pale as he called an emergency faculty meeting. They're sending what? Miran demanded when he shared the news. A slayer. From Grimhold. His name is Kexforth, Donghyun repeated numbly. It's supposed to be a motivational demonstration for our combat studies program. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what a slayer was. The warrior moon of Grimhold bred them specifically to hunt and kill dangerous species. They were living weapons created for one purpose only. This is about the human, Gina said quietly. The consortium never believed the integration program would work. They're sending the slayer to prove their point. Young-Su's 4 eyes went wide. They want to execute Taemin here? In front of the other students? Not execute, Miran corrected grimly. Demonstrate. They want to show what happens when Deathworlders aren't properly controlled. The Slayer will make it look like an educational exercise. Hyejin, the telepathic instructor, covered her face with her hands. I have to warn him. This isn't fair. Fair? Miran laughed bitterly. Nothing about Deathworlders is fair. That's why they're dangerous. The next morning, a transport ship landed on the Academy's main platform. The students gathered to watch, thinking it was just another visiting lecturer. They were wrong. Kexforth stepped off the ship like death-given form. He stood 9 feet tall, his body covered in natural armor plates that gleamed like black metal. His arms ended in claws that could tear through starship hulls, and his eyes glowed with a red light that spoke of violence and hunger. The students screamed. Several fainted. The prey species fled immediately, their instincts overriding their intelligence. Even the predator species backed away, recognizing something that could hunt them. Only Taemin remained calm. He stood among the panicking crowd, watching the Slayer with curious eyes. When their gazes met across the platform, something strange happened. Kexvorth paused. In all his years of killing, he had never seen prey that didn't show fear. "Students, return to your dormitories," Donghyun announced over the communication system. His voice shook slightly. "We have a special guest who will be demonstrating advanced combat techniques." So Young found Taemin in the library later that day. He was reading a book about Grimhold warrior culture, completely calm while chaos erupted around him. "You need to leave," she said urgently. "Right now. Take a shuttle and go anywhere else in the galaxy." "Why would I do that?" Taemin asked, not looking up from his book. "Because that thing they brought here is going to kill you." So Young grabbed his arm. "It's not a teacher or a demonstration. It's an executioner." Taemin finally looked up. His brown eyes showed no fear, only mild interest. "Interesting. What makes you think that?" "Everyone knows what Slayers do. They hunt Deathworlders. They've killed 17 different species." Taemin turned a page in his book. "It says here that Slayers are bred from childhood to fight specific types of enemies. They study their prey for years before engaging. Very thorough." "You're not listening." So Young was near tears. "He's going to tear you apart." "Maybe," Taemin agreed calmly, "but probably not." Before So Young could ask what he meant, Woojin burst into the library. The little Felixian was shaking with terror. "Taemin, you have to hide. That monster is asking about you. It knows your name, your room number, everything." "Of course it does," Taemin replied. "It's been sent here to study humans. I'm the only human here, so naturally it's interested in me." "Study you?" Woojin squeaked. "It wants to kill you. Those are the same thing to a Slayer," Taemin explained patiently. "They learn by fighting. It's actually quite logical." His calm reaction was making his friends even more scared. How could he be so relaxed about his own death? That evening, the official announcement came. Tomorrow morning, Kexvorth would demonstrate proper defensive techniques against Deathworld predators in the Academy's combat arena. All students were required to attend. The teachers met in secret that night, trying to find a way to stop what was about to happen. "We could claim he's sick," Youngsu suggested desperately. "The Slayer would wait," Miran replied. "They're very patient hunters." "What if we refuse to hold the demonstration?" Shiina asked. "Then the consortium will shut down the academy and hold it somewhere else," Donghyun said sadly. "At least here we can try to limit the damage." Hyejin had been quiet through the whole meeting. Finally, she spoke. "I tried to read the Slayer's mind today. All I could sense was confusion." "Confusion?" Miran frowned. "About what?" "About Taemin. The Slayer has studied 17 different Deathworlder species. It knows exactly how they think, how they fight, how they die. But humans are new. It doesn't understand how we work." "That won't save him," Miran said grimly. "Confusion just makes Slayers more dangerous." Meanwhile, in room 247, Woojin was trying one last time to convince his roommate to flee. "Please," the little Felixian begged. "I'll help you steal a shuttle. We can be gone before morning." Taemin was sharpening a simple metal blade he had requested from the workshop. It looked like a large kitchen knife compared to the Slayer's natural weapons. "I appreciate the offer," Taemin said gently, "but I can't run. Why not?" "There's no shame in avoiding death." "Because," Taemin held up the finished blade, testing its edge, "if I run now, they'll never let another human into their schools. The program will end and everyone will go back to being afraid of each other. But you'll be alive." Taemin smiled that gentle smile that had terrified so many students on his first day. Now Woojin realized it wasn't terrifying because it was fake. It was terrifying because it was completely real. "Woojin," Taemin said softly, "tomorrow you're going to learn something very important about humans. We don't run from tests. We take them." Outside their window, Kexvorth stood in the moonlight staring up at their room. The Slayer had killed Deathworlders from frozen ice worlds, burning desert planets and toxic swamps. But tomorrow would be his first human. He found himself looking forward to it with an emotion he had never felt before: curiosity. The morning bells rang across Nexus Prime Academy. their crystal tones echoing through halls that stretched higher than most planetary governments. Students from 100 different worlds hurried to their classes, their varied forms creating a rainbow of scales, fur, and energy fields. But today was different. Today whispers followed the bells. Did you hear? A tall Zenthari student asked his friend. They're actually doing it. They're bringing one here. His companion, a floating ethereal being, pulsed nervously. A Deathworlder here? Are the teachers insane? Taman heard the whispers as he walked through the main entrance. His simple human form looked small compared to the towering aliens around him. He carried only a basic travel bag and wore the standard academy uniform, but something about him made the other students step aside. Not from respect, but from fear. So Young, the student council president, watched from the upper balcony. Her golden Altarian features showed concern as she saw how the other students reacted to the human. She had fought hard for this program, believing that education could bridge any gap between species. Now seeing the fear in everyone's eyes, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Second thoughts? Asked Dong Hyun, the academy's head instructor. The elderly Zenthari had lived through 3 galactic wars and seen many things, but even he felt uncertain about this decision. No, So Young replied firmly. If we truly believe in education, we must trust in its power, even with him. Down in the main hall, Taman approached the registration desk. The crystalline clerk behind it actually cracked slightly when she saw him coming. Any name? She stammered. Taman, from Earth. I'm here for the Deathworlder integration program. The words Deathworlder made every conversation in the hall stop. Students who had been laughing moments before now stood frozen. A group of Felixian students who looked like large cats actually hissed and backed away. The clerk's hands shook as she processed his papers. Dorm assignment. Room 247. Your roommate is... She checked her screen. Wu Jin from Felixia. A small orange cat-like being near the back of the hall made a choking sound. That was Wu Jin. The poor Felixian looked like he might faint. Taemin smiled gently. It was just a normal, friendly smile, but it made several students jump. Thank you. I'm looking forward to learning with everyone. As he walked toward the dormitory wing, the crowd of students parted like water. Some pressed themselves against the walls. Others simply left the area entirely. The human seemed not to notice, or if he did, he didn't show it. Miran, the Corvin military instructor, watched from the security office. Her warrior species had conquered 12 systems through pure combat skill, but even she felt uneasy. This is madness, she growled to her assistant. Deathworlders don't belong in schools. They belong in cages or graves. The consortium approved it, her assistant reminded her nervously. The consortium has never faced a real Deathworlder in battle, Miran replied. I have. They don't think like us. They don't feel fear like us. They're walking disasters waiting to happen. In room 247, Wu Jin sat on his bed, trembling. His orange fur stood on end and his large eyes were wide with terror. When the door opened and Taimin entered, the Felixian actually squeaked. Hi, Taimin said softly. You must be Wu Jin. I'm Taemin. Looks like we're roommates. Wu Jin couldn't speak. In his species' evolutionary history, they had been prey animals. Every instinct he had screamed that the being in front of him was dangerous beyond measure. Yet the human was being polite. I know this is probably scary for you. Taemin continued, setting his bag down carefully. I've never shared a room with a Felixian before either, but I hope we can be friends. The word friends made Wu Jin's ears perk up slightly. Predators didn't usually want to be friends with their food. You want to be friends? Wu Jin whispered. Of course. We're going to be living together for a whole year. Might as well get along, right? Taemin began unpacking his things. Wu Jin watched nervously, expecting to see weapons or hunting tools. Instead, he saw books, some strange music devices, and pictures of other humans smiling and laughing together. Is that your pack? Wu Jin asked, pointing at a photo. My family, Taemin corrected gently. That's my mom, my dad, and my little sister. She's about your size, actually. This confused Wu Jin. If humans were apex predators, why did they keep smaller humans around? Shouldn't the big ones eat the little ones? Meanwhile, in the faculty lounge, the teachers were having their own concerns. Jinnah, the elderly Thracian professor, tapped her forearms nervously on the table. I've studied Deathworld species for 50 years, she said. They're not evil, but they're different. They think differently. They react differently. Are we prepared for that? Youngsu, the academy medic, nodded grimly. I've prepared the medical bay for combat injuries. Deathworlders solve problems with violence. It's what they do. Maybe not, said Hyojin, a young telepathic instructor. I tried to read his surface thoughts when he arrived. All I sensed was curiosity and loneliness. He actually wants to be here. Deathworlders are clever, Miran interrupted as she entered the room. They know how to hide their true nature. Don't trust what you think you see. That evening in the dining hall, the social experiment continued. Taemin sat alone at a large table, eating what the kitchen had determined was human-safe food. It looked strange compared to what the other species ate, but he didn't complain. Slowly, very slowly, some of the braver students began to observe him from a distance. A few scholarly species took notes. The warrior species kept their distance but watched carefully for signs of aggression. So Young finally decided to act. Despite the nervous protests from her friends, she approached Taemin's table. Mind if I sit? She asked. Taemin looked up surprised. Please do. I was starting to think I had some kind of disease. In a way you do, So Young said honestly. You have the disease of being different. But that's why you're here, right? To show that different doesn't have to mean dangerous. I hope so, Taemin replied. Though I'm starting to understand why Earth hasn't had many visitors. If everyone reacts like this, give them time, So Young advised. Fear fades when people get used to you. Just try not to do anything too human while they adjust. Taemin laughed, and the sound made several nearby students jump. I'll try, but I can't promise anything. Sometimes being human just happens. Neither of them knew how prophetic those words would be.